1 year ago, the Durham Bulls claimed their 5th Governor's Cup championship. What an anniversary present this would be. Swing and a miss, strike three. Austin Pruitt closes out a title defense for the Durham Bulls. Here's your win.
Hello and welcome to the Sasquatch Built podcast. I'm Cooper Brunner, your host for the show today. If you're tuning in on our video that is available right now, I want to also encourage you guys to check out our podcast audio stream, which is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Again, that's a Sasquatch Built podcast streaming now on Apple and Spotify. Today, we have a very special guest, and I'm super excited to speak with. This man is no stranger to overcoming obstacles to achieve success in his life and career. To give our listeners a little context, I literally have a sheet of paper of highlights that this guy has, a laundry list, so I don't want to get too wordy here. But to name a few highlights, starting from 1996, he was drafted by the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in the 16th round, spent over 20-plus years in the Tampa Bay Devil Rays organization, not only as a player, but as a coach and manager. His success as a manager can be highlighted from taking the Durham Bulls minor league team to 2 international championships, not 1, but 2 in 2017 and 18. Really excited to have him on the show today. And I'd like to welcome our guest and current Mariners bench coach, Jared Sandberg. Thank you, Jared, for coming onto the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Cooper. Thanks for having me. This will be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get started and get things rolling here, I know a lot of listeners, baseball fans and whatnot, don't really know what the bench coach role is for most teams. Can you explain what your role is as a bench coach?
Yeah, I mean, the bench coach, if you're thinking of like, a totem pole of trying to figure out what the pecking order of what the coaching staff is, you got your manager, so we got Scott Service as the manager of the Seattle Mariners, and then that bench coach is like the second in charge. I think each organization, each manager really kind of lays out different, ideas and thoughts of what they want their bench coach to be. And so the role is bench coach, the title's bench coach, but Scott has basically come in and just told me, like, prepare like you're going to manage the game every single day. And so I'm a, huge supporter of like the in-game moves and somebody he can lean on. He jokes all the time saying, "You've managed more games than me, so I'm going to lean on you." So it makes my job a little bit easier, just knowing that I'm going to the ballpark every day, preparing like I have for the past 10 years as a minor league manager. So that's basically it. I ran spring training the previous year in my previous role as the field coordinator at the big league level. That was more of like a role of man of many hats, and I was a part of different meetings. But now I'm more of like the some of the in-game moves and preparing like that.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And like I said in the beginning of this episode, your accomplishments that you've had in the past with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays organization is unbelievable. Ultimately, what events led you to the opportunity to become the bench coach of the Mariners? Being from Olympia, Washington, being Olympia, Washington native, I'm sure you were tickled pink to land the opportunity to coach the Mariners.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hometown team. Like, you get to put on a Mariners uniform every single day. Like, that's like a dream come true, right? But
absolutely.
So a couple things that led up to it. I mean, when you win, it kind of helps put you on the map. When you do things the right way, it helps put you on the map. I also think that the Rays. So not to correct you, but to correct you, it's the Tampa Bay Rays now, not the Devil Rays. But
my apologies.
It's all right. So the Rays are doing things the right way as far as using a smaller budget. They use their minor league system and they develop the players, and so a lot of organizations have gone out there and hand selected a lot of their coaching staff, so they just do it the right way. And then winning the back-to-back international league championships, one of those being the AAA national championship for the Durham Bulls, and leading them kind of helped put me on the map. But I think what really helped me progress to where I'm at right now is the opportunity for Charlie Montoya to go manage the Toronto Blue Jays, who was he was the bench coach for Kevin Cash with the Rays, and then Rocco Baldelli was the field coordinator. He's now the manager of the Minnesota Twins. So when those two spots opened up, it really allowed me to, go in and get my first ever interview in my entire life, 41 years old, going into my first interview. And it was with, people that I knew and I trusted in the Rays and Kevin Cash. And during that same time, the Mariners called and asked to interview me for their field coordinator position. And then at the same time, the Cincinnati Reds called and wanted to interview me for the bench coach. So here I am going through life, never having a formal interview in my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have 3 with a chance to go to the big leagues. And ultimately I chose the Mariners, being a hometown team and getting closer to my family. My wife, we've been married for 18 years, and Julie's been instrumental in my career and helping me. And then also I got a son, Evan, who's 13, and Clara, who's in 4th grade. So it was a chance for me to get closer to, my family.
Yeah, it sounds like it was just the right fit. That's awesome. I imagine that being pretty crazy, going through all these interviews and how to prepare for that, and completely different.
I learned a lot about myself during that whole situation, walking into rooms where I didn't know anybody from the Mariners organization. I had a little bit of interaction with Scott Service before. He actually released me with the Texas Rangers organization in spring training in 2007.
Wow.
But I didn't know anybody else in the room. The Reds, I didn't know anybody there. So yeah, I definitely grew a lot as a person going through that whole situation.
That's great. Well, I want to go back to that, but let's take a few steps back and dive into your career as a player. More specifically, during the time of getting drafted out of high school, was it a no-brainer for you that you wanted to go into the pros out of high school? And what colleges, if any, were you considering?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We talked a couple of days ago, and I didn't share the story. I was kind of saving it, keep it in my back pocket. But in 6th grade, one of my teachers had us write a letter to ourselves, and he would send it to us when we graduated high school. And so there was like 5 questions that we had to answer, like, who's your best friend? What do you want to do after high school? And the list goes on and on. And one of those questions was like, what do I do after high school? And I said, I wanted to go play Major League Baseball. And so as a 6th grader, I had that goal to go and do that. And it helped that I had a family member in Ryan Sandberg, Hall of Famer, Chicago Cubs second baseman, that I could, lean on and kind of follow through his career and be like a role model to me. Mm-hmm. But, ultimately deep down inside, I really wanted to play Major League Baseball. And so I knew that going through high school, I had to get an education first. I had to graduate and then create the leverage in the draft if I was even drafted or even good enough to get drafted. So going through that whole recruiting process, I had a couple offers. I had Cal Berkeley at Washington State when my dad played on the 1976 College World Series team. And then I had University of Hawaii. And, it came down for me like weather, education, and then creating leverage for the draft. And I eventually chose Hawaii. So I graduate high school. I go play in the Pacific International League. It's a college league. I go right out of high school and go play there. Tremendous opportunity. I was hurt to start my high school senior season. I sprained my ankle in the basketball state tournament. So when Paul Kirsch, the Tampa Bay Devil Rays scout, came to watch me play the first couple of weeks of the season, I was out with a sprained ankle.
Wow.
And then he never kind of came back to watch me play. So I got invited to a tryout at Lower Columbia Community College with a couple other, local prospects. Rob Ramsey, a left-hander at Washington State, was one of the guys that came in. So RJ Harrison, the scouting director, gives me a call and says, hey, we want you to come to this tryout. So I go to this tryout. It's probably like a week before the draft. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I ran really slow. I wasn't very quick. Showed a decent arm, but I think what one of the intangibles that they liked in this tryout situation after taking batting practice, they wanted a couple of the pitchers to throw live. Wow. And so here I am, a high school kid, and Rob Ramsey, this left-hander from Washington State, he's going to get drafted, touching 90 probably, goes up on the mound, and they're like, okay, who wants to jump in there? I'm like, I'll jump in there. So I jump in there, I hit the first pitch, line drive over like the second baseman's head. And then, they end up drafting me in the 16th round, which I felt was a little late, but, everybody else had opportunity to draft me. And then I go throughout the Pacific International League. A couple months after the draft, and we negotiate back and forth, and I signed for a huge signing bonus of $60,000. And to answer your question, it came down to one thing that my dad said. It was the same advice he gave my uncle. My uncle was a Hall of Fame player, but also he was an All-American quarterback coming out of North Central High School. And he was debating whether or not to go play professionally with the Phillies or go to, I think it was Washington State where he signed. And my dad asked me, do you want to go to college? And my dad asked me the same question. And my answer was, I can always go back to college. University of Hawaii would be a tremendous opportunity, but going and playing professional baseball and trying to live my dream that way, I'll just go give it a shot. I can always go back to college. And so that came down to that, do you want to go to school or not?
Yeah, exactly. And you have that fearlessness and a lot of people behind you really guiding you. So that's such a cool story. And I want to tie into this for giving advice to people going through the recruiting process right now, based off of your experience and analyzing young players in high school or college athletes, outside of, the raw talent that they have in athleticism. What specific tools are scouts looking for nowadays in players? Like, how does a kid separate themselves from other players?
Yeah, I mean, the scouts are, looking at your 5 tools, and college coaches are looking at, the education part of it as well. But I
Mhm.
think character plays into it. So, that interaction that you have, whether it's on social media. So, go out there and clean up your social media. It's turning, it's biting a lot of people in the butt right now. And so make sure that's cleaned up. And, I think, a lot of that stuff, from a character standpoint, being a good teammate, but also, like, some of the small things, like if you're, a top player and you're dealing with adversity, say for a baseball standpoint, you strike out and you throw your bat or throw your helmet. I mean, that's a little check mark next to your name, like a question mark. So all those things matter, and the spotlight's definitely on you, where you need to know that your actions, you're going to be held accountable. So go out there and hold your chin up high, and deal with the adversity with some broad shoulders.
Absolutely. Is there such a thing? I remember growing up and a lot of people were telling me not to go to too many camps and overexpose yourself. Do you agree with that? Like, is there like so many camps and so many things you can do to get yourself exposed to, whether it's the college space or to pro scouts? Like, what's your recommendations on that? Like, what events should they go to?
Yeah, I mean, you got the perfect game. I
Mhm.
shared an opportunity to go to the area code games, and my
Yeah.
time was back in '95. Were you even born yet, Cooper?
Hey, I was August 95. Okay.
Okay, all right. Hey, right when I was going to the area codes. So no, I think you got to go to the events. There's a lot of people that pay a lot of money to go to all the events and get their name on the leaderboard and all that. But there's other ways. You can go to college campuses and go to their camps. But these scouts, these college coaches, they're going to find you. I think you should limit your exposure a little bit, but also you should look for that exposure. And again, it's not it's okay. It's not a problem if you reach out via email nowadays to a coach and start that interaction back and forth, and just let them know that you're interested in their school or getting education from their university. So I think overexposure is something that people talk about, because the more somebody sees you, they're going to see your flaws, and you start to see their flaws. You want to just showcase yourself with all your best tools. So yeah, there's a chance for overexposure as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What's your hot take on, because I see this across the board in all sports, football, basketball, baseball, softball, what have you. A lot of athletes out of high school are committing to these schools, whether verbally or like basically verbally committing as a freshman or sophomore in high school. Me in particular, I've had the similar experience. What would be your advice on if a college reaches out to you, you like their school, offer you a verbal commitment? How would you approach that to your son if he had a similar scenario?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all want, that security, right? So
Right.
if you're, an eighth grader, freshman, sophomore, whatever, and you want to early commit, and you give that verbal, there's a chance that, the university goes in a different direction and the coach moves on, what, for better opportunity. And all of a sudden now you're left with the new coach coming in. You may not like him. He may not like you. So verbally committing gives you that security, but also just know that when you decommit, it's only going to affect one person, and that's you. And I think that's huge, where, a lot of these players that have verbally committed early and then they have to decommit, they're the ones that their name gets dragged through the mud, and it really affects them, and they're gonna have to they're gonna be the ones to recover, and sometimes it can be hard to recover from that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great advice. Fast forwarding back into the minor leagues and you getting drafted. You came into the league, like you said, off the record, 175 pounds, athletic, but you were telling me that you were putting in the work, working with teammates and packing on some muscle and strength in a short period of time, taking a lot of dedication to your sport and to your game. During this time period, what was going through your head and what challenges were you facing in the beginning of your career?
Yeah, I think hitting 169 in my first 77 at bats in the Gulf Coast League in 1996 really it was eye opening. Was seeing 90 miles an hour every single day in rookie ball. I saw an 83-mile-an-hour slider for the first time, and it was definitely overwhelming. And then just putting a wood bat in my hands, I didn't have the strength to play, and I knew that I had to get stronger. I knew I had to get faster.
Mhm.
So that first offseason, I went home and I had 5 months to go lift weights, and plus I hit a little growth spurt and had some late maturity. So I actually grew an inch and gained 55 pounds over the course of the next 18 months. And I've been 6'3", 225 ever since then. So anybody that's trying to challenge me that I wasn't legit, hey, just check me out right now. Same weight, same height. So
Great.
I think, that strength helped me. Then the next year going through extended spring training, hitting a bunch of home runs. I think it's 17 in a short season, which,
Wow.
if you double that for a major league season, you look at, mid 30s or more. So I won the MVP of the Appalachian League, and I think that helped put me on the map, not only as a prospect, but also kind of helped get me and get my name out there and get out of the shadow of Ryan Sandberg. So I definitely helped put Jared Sandberg on the map, and then, going forward to the next year, 1998, go to the South Atlantic League in A-ball. He was low A at the time, or still is low A. And, I fell flat on my face again. Like, not that I thought I was a top prospect. I was playing with a bunch of top prospects, but you have to bring it every single day. No matter, it doesn't matter what you did in the past. It's about what you do today, tomorrow, and beyond, and how you prepare for that. So, I really struggled. And I think one of the things I always look back on my journey through the minor leagues that really helped me is that when I got sent from the Salary League to the New York Penn League right after the draft, it really helped me from a mindset standpoint that I didn't take it as demotion. I took it as another opportunity, even though I was going down a level, but it allowed me to just clear the slate. And all of a sudden I look at the scoreboard and it says batting average 000 instead of that measly 179 or 180 or whatever it was that year that I hit in the first half. So I had the positive mindset, went up there. It was a chance to start over, put up good numbers again that year. Was an all-star in the league, and then ended up skipping the Sally League, going to the Florida State League. The next year, 99, had another really good year. And eventually got put on the 40-man roster after my A-ball season, which doesn't happen very often. So
Wow.
I think, having that mindset from the demotion standpoint, really, and I've told a lot of the players too, because I was in the Rays organization and then managing in the Rays organization, those players are dealing with the same stuff. And I was really able to relate to them. So I've told that story many times about just when somebody gets demoted, try and find the positive and have the right mindset and go down there and kick butt and move on.
This is so good. That's great stuff. Great advice. You brought up a few points that I want to zoom in on. First thing being the nephew of the Chicago Cubs Hall of Famer, Ryan Sandberg. Did you feel throughout your career any pressure or high expectations from other people with that last name, the Sandberg last name?
Well, yeah, a lot of pressure, but it was a great role model. It's an uncle, it's a family member. You share the same last name, and he was the first. How many Gold Gloves he won, how many All-Star games. He's the first $6 million man in baseball, which at that time it was a lot of money, 1990. But it was somebody that gave me a chance to look up to somebody. And unfortunately, I didn't have WGN growing up, so I couldn't watch the Cubs play like a lot of people across the United States. They got to watch WGN. So whenever the Cubs go play the Braves, I get to watch them on TBS.
That's right. Yeah.
But it was tough going into pro ball because it was definitely a shadow, and Sandberg on the back of my jersey. It made it tough. Like, hey, Ryan Sandberg. I heard that a lot, especially after after striking out. Hey, Ryan Sandberg wouldn't have done that, but no, it was all good. It helped me know that I need to make a name for myself and go out there and be me and be Jared Sandberg. I don't have to be Ryan Sandberg, but it was tough. And I think it helped me winning that Appalachian League MVP early on, to help put my name out there. But then the other thing too is, I think it was my first or second year in the winter. Ryan was making his comeback to go play one more season after he retired early, and I went down to Arizona and lived with him, and got to see what the big league lifestyle was, meet his family, be a part of him and his kids and their growth and everything, and it was fantastic to be able to be side by side, putting a ball on a tee for a future Hall of Famer, and working out, preparing, and I got to learn what preparation was all about.
Mm-hmm.
So we're running our sprints, we're throwing BP, we're hitting fungos to each other, and then the next year I did the same thing for a month before spring training, and at that time he was retired, and he gave me the time, and it was incredible. I learned a lot as far as like preparation and what it really takes going into spring training to be ready to go.
Yeah, I want to jump on that because we talked about that off the record with Ken Revisa and mental toughness and his book and mentality of how to find focal points and trigger points to stay focused, like be in the moment, heads up baseball for what I'm talking about with his book. What pregame, during game routines did you have that ultimately got you into that high performing mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it was about, after a game, you want to make sure that you go and you revisit and kind of review. And then once it's over, it's time to move on. And as soon as I walked out of the clubhouse doors, or I walked off the high school field or whatever, I was getting prepared for the next day or the next game. So that really helped put, the negative or even the positives behind me. And then, preparing the night before for the next day, making sure I got good rest and making good decisions the night before, and getting up and then putting the work in before, whether it was in the weight room on a daily basis. But that switch that we all talk about, it's flipped the switch. For me, it flipped the night before in trying to be prepared for the next day. Or, maybe there was a time when I needed to take a night away, and then the next morning I was able to flip it early in the morning. But for a 7:05 game to flip the switch on at 6:50, you're late. You're late to the party, man. So for me, 7:05 game, it started about doing my work early on. That helped prepare me. And then at 6:00, took a shower, put my uniform on, and then that was me, like, getting ready for the game. Like no distractions. Like nowadays, like people are still on their cell phones and social media, and you're not putting yourself in the right mindset with enough time to eliminate or limit the distractions. So I always started, an hour before the game, getting myself mentally prepared, maybe getting in the weight room, getting, warmed up again. But then at 6:25, when I laced up my shoes, that was my lock-in time. That was when I really like locked it in. So as soon as I, tied those laces tight, that was my lock-in, and I was heading out, and I was prepared and I'm ready to go to battle. Instead of trying to flip the switch and lock in 15 minutes before the game, it's just not enough time.
Yeah, no, that's really important. I had what Longoria had, similar to him, where you'd put the batting gloves, like this was during game routine, put the batting gloves on, take them back off, put them back on, and looking at the foul post, because that's what Ken was teaching.
Yeah.
And was focal points for me to, okay, focus out, lock back in. We're in present moment right here, right now. That's powerful. That's great stuff. I want to move a little bit more forward and talk about some highlights, some big highlights with your career as a player. August 7th, 2001, first game in the major leagues. Exciting. Explain to me what your first game was like. What were you feeling? Your emotions? I'm sure you had a ton of nerves. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so I'll even go back to August 6th, the night before. We finished a game in Columbus, Ohio, against the it was the Yankees affiliate, and we're watching the Rays game on TV, or the Devil Rays game on TV, and there was an injury early in the game, and so I was the only position player on the 40-man roster at the time. So I would think I was hitting 240 at the time, not expecting to get called up at all. Mm-hmm. I needed to produce and put up a few more numbers. I needed more seasoning in the minor leagues. But at the time, the Devil Rays were calling up a lot of young players and getting them to the big leagues. So I took the first bus home back to the hotel that night and, try to get some sleep. My roommate, Andy Sheets, he comes in and he's like, hey, there's an injury, so you're getting called up. I'm like, no, I'll wait. I'm not going to get too excited. I'm going to try and go to sleep. Let's wait for Bill Evers, my manager, to call me. And the call never came. like that night, like I need to prepare to jump on a plane, like pack my bags. So he called, I think I woke up at like 8:30 that next morning and still no call. So he's going to call the hotel phone at the time. I think it was about 9:15, 9:30. He gives me a call. So now it's late. It's a 7:00 game in Tampa. I'm in Ohio. So he calls and gives me the whole speech, and pretty emotional and excited. I call my parents and called Julie and my fiance at the time. But now all of a sudden it's like everything starts going really, really fast. Now it's like, okay, how do I get my baseball bag from? How do I get to the airport? Like all this stuff. Well,
You're messed.
It was about taking a breath at that time, just because now it's a dream come true and all that stuff. So, the trainer, Paul, he takes me to the airport. I jump on a plane. Only flight out was I think it was a Southwest flight, so I couldn't even fly first class. Like normally when you get called up, you fly first class. So I had to fly Southwest coach. Oh,
Bottom feeder ticket. That's great. What a great story.
I think I land about 4:45, 5 o'clock. There's a huge thunderstorm in Tampa. Wow. And so get delayed on the tarmac. And it's a 7:05, 7:15 game, whatever it is. And get picked up. My bags are all wet, get rushed to the ballpark. And now it's like I'm shaking hands with everybody. And now it's starting to pick up again. It's really fast. And trying to say hello, get my uniform, locker, media wants to talk, and then I got to go to the cage. Now all of a sudden we're taking infield. I'm like, yeah, I want to take infield. Like it's turf. How many times I've taken ground balls on turf? So, and then also you got the roof in Tropicana Field. It's tough on pop-ups. So go out there and get warmed up, take an infield, which kind of helped, eliminate some of the jitters a little bit, get on the field.
Yeah.
Tom Foley hit me a couple pop-ups. I think I just dropped the first one. Like I never saw it in the roof. And he's like, good luck today for tonight. So I was at 9th in the order against the Yankees. Mike Messina's on the mound. So I knew he's got this nasty curveball, and go out there and face off against the Yankees. And, that major league debut, you run on the field, like just feels like you're floating. And, luckily it wasn't in Yankee Stadium. It was in Tropicana Field. Not many fans. They're all rooting for the Yankees anyway. So, go out there and hit 9th and come up in my first at bat. It was on first and third. I think there was out, and I'm like, just like everybody else, first pitch in the major leagues, you're trying to hit the ball as far as you can, be that, make history and hit your first pitch for a home run or something. And man, Mike Messina's curveball came out of the Tropicana, sky or ceiling. Man, I never saw it. It buckled me, and now I'm mad because I couldn't get a swing off, and it's strike one. Mm-hmm. Well, he doubles up, tries to sneak another one by me, and I shoot a line drive past Giambi at first base for an RBI base hit in my first at bat.
That's so cool.
Yeah, make it to first base, and I don't even remember running to first base. Just excited, and they'd stop the game, get the baseball and everything. It was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah. And you didn't trip. You did everything right.
I was floating. Remember, I couldn't trip.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so cool. And that's such an awesome moment in time looking back. Let's go to another highlight in your career. You're playing against Los Angeles Dodgers at Tampa Bay, June 11th, 2002. I'm sure it's a day you'll never forget. Bottom of the 5th inning, off the first pitch of left-hander Omar Dahl, you blast a home run to left field in the same inning. Poor Dodgers fans. Rays are going nuts. Same inning. First pitch again off the righty Giovanni Carrera. You hit another 3-run, but this time 3-run bomb.
Leading off for the Rays, Sandberg, and boy, does he get a hold of this one. That baby's fair and gone. And the high shot deep into left center. Boca Chica will watch it go. Home run. Jared Sandberg hits a 3-run blast. He's seen 2 pitches in this inning and has hit 2 home runs.
But yeah, that was incredible.
All's crushed.
The first one like wrapped the foul pole, and like the video when you look at it, like, man, that's like 10 feet foul. Like where's the replay? But it was definitely fair. And then then to come up again, I had no idea that it was in the same inning. They bring in Carrera to face me. Those a little first pitch cement mixer, and I just crushed it. And so 2 pitches, 2 home runs in the same inning. It was ridiculous. I get back to the dugout, everybody's going nuts. And I'm like, man, okay, yeah, 2 home runs, pretty cool. I've done it before. And they're like, dude, do you know it's still a 5th inning? I'm like, what? So I look up at the scoreboard, and sure enough, like it's still 5th inning. I think we scored 8 or 9 runs or whatever inning, and definitely a highlight for me. And one of those things where I was maybe so much in the moment, too present, where I wasn't too external, that I couldn't let much in because I wanted to be so focused that I didn't. Maybe that's what helped me hit 2 pitches and be in the zone or whatever.
Right, a flow state.
I wish I would have been a little more like, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool. But I was so stoic and hated to smile, didn't want to show emotion, and wish I would have showed more emotion during that time, because that was definitely a huge highlight.
Yeah, I watched the video probably 20 times. I was like, this man just disrespects the Dodgers here. Like, they're up by 9 runs and there's no looking back. Like, take no prisoners, like it's just that fearlessness that you have. And like I was saying, the flow state, you were just not even thinking about it. It was all that practice preparation. You saw your first pitch, tacked it, and the rest just takes care of itself,
Yeah. So you talk about being fearless. So I come up in my 4th at bat, and I'm facing Moda, I believe. It's throwing like 100 miles an hour, and I hit a base at the left and broke my bat. So I still have my bat for the 2 home runs, whatever. I still have it in a box. But you talk about being fearless. Like, I wasn't scared of hitting or getting another hit or hitting another home run, but I was questioning, like, okay, how do I hit a 3rd home run in this game? Like, that's where like some fear and some doubt crept in, and I ended up getting a base hit where I had to like step out of the box and go, okay, listen, it's just another at bat. Like, then that's where I started getting external and trying to do too much, which I did a lot in my career. And, there was some doubt and fear, even in a 2 home run game or a 2 home run inning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to just keep that consistency throughout your career, and coming on such a high of highs. Right. It's the expectations from all the fans in the backdrop. You have 2 home runs. Oh, he's going to do another one. I imagine it'd be tough.
And I got, we used to shift Carlos Delgado with the Blue Jays. So we're in Skydome one, I think it was 2003, and he hit 4 home runs in one game. So like, what's going through his mind? He's hitting 4 home runs in one game. I had 2 in one inning, and I got fear, and he's got there's your fearless, like no fear.
Right.
4 home runs in one game. I got to witness that. It's pretty special.
That is special. I want to talk about the ups and downs that you've had. You've had such great highlights. We only touched briefly on a few here, but due to time, I don't want to go too long. But again, amazing highlights in your career as a player. One of the toughest parts about playing in the MLB is staying consistent. Like I was saying earlier, day in and day out, performing at your highest level to keep that spot on the roster. But sometimes players get in a slump and they move up and down in the league. When you moved into the minors, did this affect your confidence at all? Like, what was the difference that you noticed in your own play from shifting to the majors and minors throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's a grind, especially in the minor leagues when you're playing a game every single day, maybe one off day a month. And as a prospect, they want you to play every single game and get as many at bats and everything that you can get. So it's a grind. It's hard. And then, getting to the big leagues, you talked about, that consistency. I mean, that's one thing that is going to keep you at the highest level or the next level, is that consistency and be able to do it day in and day out. So, the sooner you can learn that and consistency, and it's hard. I mean, we're all going to go through, for me, the 0 for 20s or whatever, or me 4 or 5 strikeout game, or having a 5 strikeout game coming up for a chance for a 6th. Like, are you kidding me? I struck out a ton in my career. But I also had a lot of power. And so I think, trying to find the positive in whatever situation you're in, having a smile on your face. When I became a manager, I always tried to be stoic and not show much emotion, because I remember playing third base and looking over in the dugout and seeing Lou Piniella, and he's throwing his hat, and I'm like, man, I can't make an error because what's he going to do to me? So, I was told, like, hey, you need to smile more. So I wish I would have smiled more when I played and just really enjoyed it, because you just never know when it's going to end. And, that goes for anybody. Like, you could be, on your freshman baseball team or freshman basketball team, or, barely making the track and field team, whatever it is. And it may be your last. So, you just enjoy whatever opportunity you have in whatever position you put yourself in, and try and find the positive.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that's powerful. A few more questions that I want to get into the coaching stuff, but was there a moment in your career as a player where you felt like a immense amount of doubt, like getting back into the major leagues? And if you had this doubt, how did you overcome this mindset? You kind of briefly touched on staying positive, but are there any other things that you had, like maybe someone you'd lean on, or how would you keep yourself in that mindset? Like, I'm going to get back up there,
Yeah. And so, I mean, I say this lightly, but I mean, I was consistently mediocre. You look at my career numbers, like 240 and batting average, and, right around that 17, 18 home run mark, throughout every season and in long seasons, stuff like that. So it was about being consistent for me, but it was just poor play. And, looking back, I think as a manager or coach, I can see a lot of the same stuff that I did in certain players, and I can try and, detour them and put them in a better position where they can have more success individually. I think, work ethic is one. You have to have a strong work ethic. You have to be selfless too. You got to put your teammates, before you. And so, I mean, I remember, 0 for 4 strikeouts, we win the game. I mean, I got a smile. I'm one of the happiest guys in the clubhouse. And that just helped me internally, like, push it all aside for what I didn't do to help the team win, but everybody else picked me up, and really lean on your teammates and pick your teammates up. I think, anytime you can do that, and play for the team, a lot of your goals are going to be reached. And I learned that at an early age in pro ball. A lot of the college guys that were coming out of college, they were coming from that team atmosphere, that team environment, and they always talked about being selfless. And it's hard in the minor leagues because you individually want to make it to the big leagues for your family. But I always thought about my teammates first. And if it's the runner on second base and the manager asks me to hit a ball to the right side to move him over, I'm doing everything I can to do that, so the next guy in line can drive him in. And that's just team play. If the manager asks you to lay down a bunt and you're the 4-hole hitter, what do? You stick your nose in there and for your team, and you get the job done. You lay the bunt down for the team. And, if you can put the team first, it's going to take you a long way.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Coming with our theme here on the episode with overcoming adversity, we had that discussion earlier. What advice would you give to young athletes dealing with an obstacle, especially how things are going on right now? We have limited resources, not being able to play. What can athletes do to stay on track?
I think you got to use your imagination. I mean, in this day and age, I tell my kids this all the time. Like if you want to learn something, you can YouTube it, and somebody's gonna be able to teach you. And so I'm not very handy around the house, and so if I need to know how to, whatever, fix the garbage disposal under the sink, I'm going to YouTube it, and I'm going to watch it 4 or 5 times, and I'm going to learn how to do it. So, I mean, in this day and age, you can learn so much from everybody else. And I think, dealing with the adversity, amateur athletes, it's a limited season. So, you might play 20 high school baseball games, 26 high school baseball games, and you're trying to put up numbers in a short window. I mean, what is it, 60, 80 at bat? So, if you have to deal with adversity, it might be, a 1 for 6, or an 0 for 4. Like,
hopefully not.
Oh my gosh. Like, I mean, try going 0 for 20, and when your family at the big league level, when you're trying to, provide for your family. So I think, dealing with the adversity, like right now you have to have an imagination to get out and just go play. I mean, my son and I have been out on the street playing catch. We put a net up in the garage. We hit in the garage. My daughter's out kicking the soccer ball around. We got some bikes, and we started riding bikes and just getting out and getting some exercise that way. I've seen some videos of some of the guys throwing the ball against the wall and fielding some ground balls that way. But, you just have to use your imagination instead of just kind of letting all this stuff to kind of fall into your lap. And especially during this time, like, there's a lot of people that are out there using their imagination and using their resources, whether it's filling up a bucket full of sand or dirt and creating some sort of weights, and because you don't have weights at your house, and lifting weights and getting stronger that way. So you just got to use your imagination during this time to try and get better, because there are some other people out there that are really, really creative, and they're getting stronger, they're getting faster, and they're taking advantage of their time.
Yep, 100%. As soon as you ended your playing career, were you satisfied? And what changes would you have made if you could go back and play again?
Yeah, I mean, my last year, I was diagnosed with a rare eye disease, so it definitely hindered me throughout my career, and I didn't even know that I had it. So it's limited peripheral vision,
Mm-hmm.
and so knowing that at the end of my career that I was dealing with that, I'm fully satisfied, and I knew that I was going to be able. I had a lot of stories and successes and ups and downs and all that stuff, and I made it to the big leagues, but I was going to be able to go into coaching. Just like my dad, just like my uncle, kind of coaching and teaching is in our blood. And I was going to be able to use those experiences and be able to, go out and share those with people that I was going to come across and make them better along the way. So at the end of my career, I wish I could always keep a player's uniform on, but now I got the coaching uniform on, and I look back at my playing career and I'm pleased, especially knowing that I wasn't going to be able to play for very much longer.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And that ties in well to my next question. With being with the organization, with the Rays for so long, you being networked in the league and having a pretty good idea as a player how the dynamics of the league works. What was that transition like from being a player to entering the managing coaching realm in the MLB and minors?
Yeah, I mean, it was actually pretty easy for me. In my career ended in 07. As soon as and I was done playing with the Kansas City Royals AA team after just a little 1-month hiatus,
Mm-hmm.
I started reaching out to all the different teams, and ultimately it was the Devil Rays and Mitch Lukovics, director of player development at the time. He was my first team coach in 1990. So when I reached out to him, he's like, hold on. Don't talk to anybody else. Let me talk to my boss, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, it just started rolling, like where they actually created an extra coaching position for me. I became a hitting coach that very next year in 2008, and I just voiced my opinion that I want to be a manager. So then 09, I'm a manager. Went down to rookie ball, and now I'm in Princeton, West Virginia, where I was an MVP of the Appalachian League in '97. So it all kind of started to come back, and I just worked my way back up through all the different ranks in the Rays organization. I think it also helped too, the Devil Rays at the time had like the rainbow colors. We had purple stirrups and everything.
All over the place.
Yeah, it was crazy. So then once I got to being a coach, they changed their color scheme and went to like the blue, the navy blue and everything. So it kind of helped me transition when I put on that uniform, knowing that it is the same organization, but it's a different color scheme. And now I'm into coach mode. But it also helped that I was with a lot of the same coach. Now I'm coaching side by side with a lot of the coaches that I had as a player. Tom Foley, Steve Henderson, Bill Evers, Charlie Montoya. Charlie was my roommate in spring training. After he managed me in 97, 98, he's my roommate in spring training. And, the list goes on and on of all these guys that were there to help guide me as an 18-year-old. And then now they're there with me when I start my coaching career. And it was an easy transition for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's so cool. That's so cool how that works. If you just put in the time and are just a selfless guy, you have that manifestation of attracting people to want to see you get involved and become a part of their organization because they wanted you. It sounded like really badly to stay. And
well, yeah, I mean, to be able to relate to the players like I was able to do going through the minor leagues and host families in Hudson Valley. Bus trips, whatever it is, going back to Durham and being a manager in Durham, where Mike Burling is the GM, and Scott Strickland's the assistant GM now, but he was head groundskeeper when I was going through as a player. So it was all familiar, and I'm able to relate to the players because I'm like, hey, these guys were here when I was here as a player, and this is how they treated me, and they helped mold me into the person that I am today. So like I said, it was an easy transition, but it also helps when you treat people with respect and treat people the right way, and just don't burn any bridges, knowing that you just never know when that next opportunity is coming around.
Yeah. So 10 plus years in the Rays farm organization as a coach. Notably, you coached the AAA Durham Bulls, very famous team. Obviously, a lot of success out of that organization where you won two championships. And zooming in on those 2 championship seasons, you know, what do you think the players you coached on that team would say about you and how you led these players to these championships? In other words, like how did you bring these players together and manage them in a way to become a championship team?
Yeah, so, talking to a lot of people, managing a AAA team is very, very difficult because you got some up-and-coming prospects that are trying to get to the big leagues. You got players that have done that, gone to the big leagues and come back down. And then you have just the players that have been up there and they're coming back down from a demotion standpoint. So it's a tough level to manage because the roster is such in flux. But I think the one thing is you have to manage the people, the person, on an individual basis. I think my first 2 years, so 2015 and 2016, I didn't put much of an emphasis on winning because I've never done that in the minor league. I never said, hey, we got to go out and win. I felt like it put too much pressure on the players. I tried to put them in spots to go out there and have success so then the team could win. I didn't talk much about winning. But there's such a tradition in Durham. It's a winning tradition that Bill Evers and Charlie Montoya, they've won so many championships before me. And then all of a sudden there's this 2-year lull and I'm the leader. So I had to change my whole mindset, along with managing the people and the person that these players are. I needed to challenge the players to compete. And so I think when I changed my mindset to compete, that's when all of those players kind of changed their mindset, but it also brought back that winning tradition. And then also on top of that, we had tremendous talent on those teams in 17 and 18. And when you have talent and they all come together and they compete, which now you see a lot of those guys are in, the big leagues with the Tampa Bay Rays right now. And Blake Snell, Willie Adames. It makes my life a lot easier. But, knowing that I changed my mindset to competition and go out there and compete every day. And then whenever your opportunity comes around, I'm going to call you in the office and I'm going to tell you, hey, man, you're going to the big leagues. But, when that time isn't there or it's not coming, don't worry about it. Just go play and put up the numbers and compete. And so I think when I changed my mindset, it really helped, the whole situation around, the Durham Bulls in my time there.
Yeah, that's so cool. How would you explain your coaching philosophy? If you were to, what were some important characteristics a manager needs to put their team in a position to win? Like you talked about competing, having that, Pat Casey had that when I was at Oregon State, like always compete. That is something you can control. How would you answer that question?
Yeah, it's a great question. And when I started my coaching career, I always look back on the coaches that I had, the managers that I had. And I always thought about, okay, this is what I don't want to do. This is what I don't want this situation to look like. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was about communication. It was always tough. Coaches didn't communicate. They didn't tell you how you stood on the team, what your playing time was going to be like. And if they didn't dive into like your personal stuff, like, hey, what do your parents do? Or you have any siblings and just get to know you as a person. Like the communication is number one. And that also just helps like a back and forth between the player and the coach instead of the player being so scared to go talk to, that head coach or that manager. So making sure there's a personal relationship there, but also making sure that they know who is in charge. So communication, number one, and then organization. If you got to be organized, and being in the minor leagues, you have to be organized because it's their investment is the player. And so if we're not organized and their investment gets hurt, there's no return on the investment. So you really got to stay organized, and being organized means a lot of different things, whether it's day to day, the developmental process and making sure that the players are reaching their goals, but also in game, and then the post game review as well. I think is important. Whether you're talking about it after the game or even the next day, and just making sure you're organized and in your daily plan, monthly plan, and all of that. So. Those are the two big things for me. It always was tough whenever you walked into a clubhouse and, the manager wasn't organized and you just didn't really know what to do or where to go or anything like that. And if you didn't communicate on top of that, it's just a disaster. So those are the two big things for me.
Okay. Awesome. So after managing in the minors and seeing incredible success, you position yourself to earn the opportunity to become a bench coach or possibly a coach for other teams. But in this case, as a bench coach and field coordinator for the Seattle Mariners. How has your coaching style changed or adapted since leaving the minors with the Durham Bulls and helping coach the Seattle Mariners ball club?
Yeah, I was asked this question in my first interview with the Rays.
Wow.
They asked me, and it's a pretty standard HR question, but they asked me like, "What's one thing you're going to struggle with in
Mm-hmm.
this new role in the big leagues?" And my answer was, "I'm in a support role now. I'm not the manager, and so I'm not in charge. So being a part of the coaching staff in a support role was something that if I was going to be in Tampa, I would have had all the same players that I was once in charge of, and now I'm supporting. I would have been supporting Kevin Cash. So now with the Mariners, I have to learn a whole new organization. Players, front office, player development staff, but then also be part of that support role instead of like the decision maker. So it's definitely something that I'm still working on as far as that support role and what it actually means and what I need to do to help support everybody involved.
So what's happening for you right now? We've been dealing with a lot of problems right now with the COVID and not being able to play baseball games. How are you handling this whole scenario with the club at the Mariners?
Um, it's tough. No sports on TV. No competition. So definitely trying to find ways to compete with my kids and my family, my wife. Whether it's board games, whether it's biking, whether it's catch play, soccer, whatever it is. Trying to get that competitiveness out, but also one of the silver linings is that I get to spend so much time with my family. Like I would be in the middle of the baseball season right now. In years past, I'd be all the way across the United States on the other coast, and so far away, and not be able to see my kids grow and develop. So with Evan, in seventh grade and to that point physically where he's growing and we're getting in the garage and we're doing some workouts. And he's pumping some iron and seeing some muscle that he's never knew he had, or even just developing those relationships with my daughter and my wife that during the baseball season I'm at the baseball field all day long. So it's tough to have that relationship. So that's kind of the silver lining of being at home. But we've been hunkered down and staying busy at home. I know my yard is really appreciative that I'm home. Like we've got some green grass for the first time and this time of year, and the flower beds are weeded. And no, it's been okay. But I'm definitely excited to get back to baseball and getting back to energizing a region through baseball. What the Seattle Mariners can do, and looking forward to my new role as the bench coach. And I think our organization's done an incredible job of engaging everybody during this time. So that, we've talked about like a growth mindset and trying to get better. And since day one, we got sent home from spring training on March 15th. It's been about trying to get better, trying to learn, trying to grow. And I think, with the different meetings we've had and the contact that the coaching staff has had with the players, it's been a positive for everybody to kind of get to know each other on a more personal level before we go to a shortened season and hopefully try and make the playoffs for the first time in a long time. We got some young and exciting players too. So you can pick some of the a couple of these young players. They're gonna be around for a while and they're gonna be exciting as well.
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing the Giants fans in the down south. I'm a big Mariners fan. I got to see it. This is the year of the Mariners. You already know. No, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that you guys are looking at it in the right way, right mindset, staying positive. Just a few closing questions, and then we'll play a game at the end. I know I didn't want to take too much of your time. Value your time and appreciate. And Seattle Mariner fans, all major league fans and young kids are going to really appreciate this episode and hearing your advice and your take on your experiences. But what is your biggest piece of advice that you have ever gotten?
Wow. It kind of hits home right now, but like treat others how you want to be treated. I think, just the respect part of that whole thing. I think especially nowadays, how things are playing out right now, I think that's the biggest thing for me and how I treat people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And flipping it to the other question, what is the worst advice that you've ever gotten in your life?
Man, the worst. I mean, there is some bad advice. I think, even going on change. Let's talk about change, like how the philosophy of hitting has come about. Some of the worst advice I got as a power hitter, I was told to hit a ground ball to the second baseman, not knowing that it was an exaggeration of a mental approach, but this helped you, keep your front side in, stay on the ball. But now we're talking about, getting on plane and lifting the ball, keeping the ball in the air. Like, probably the worst advice I ever got was hit a ground ball to the second baseman.
I've heard that advice too. It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, I took it literally. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hit a ground ball to second baseman. I go back, it's a 4-3 in the scorebook, and I'm out 0 for 1, and I come back to the dugout, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, that's what you told me to do." And they're like, "No, it's a mental approach." Like
Too coachable.
Okay, yeah.
That's great. Well, I want to end it with this last game. We call it speed rounds. I'm going to say a word, and you're going to respond with the first word or phrase that comes to your mind. The only rule in this game is to not repeat your answer.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I am now. I just laced up my spikes. I'm ready.
First word. Baseball.
Baseball. That's my life.
Failure.
Failure. How about learn from your mistakes?
Perfect. Nice answer. Success.
Reaching a goal.
Family.
Love.
Passion.
Fire.
I love it. And
Yeah.
finally, your legacy.
Oh man. It kind of ties into right now too. Like, how about whatever place you're in, leave it a better place when you leave.
Perfect. My man. Well, Jared, sir, thank you for coming onto the show. I look forward to getting this out there to as many people as possible, because the things that you've been saying have been incredible, and a lot of people are going to get a lot of value out of this episode, especially Mariner fans, Ray fans, especially the Sasquatch community. Really looking forward to also watching you on TV soon enough with the Mariners. Go Mariners. Hope you guys have a great season. And with that being said, last thing I have for you is, how can people follow you? Do you have a social or Twitter, Instagram, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I didn't do a very good job on social media to try and tie in the two names, so I got a different name on both Instagram and Twitter. So you'll be able to find me pretty easy.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Cooper.
And make today count, guys. Thanks for tuning in.